My brother's wife turned our entire family against each other and manipulated him into leaving us because, in her eyes, we were the toxic ones. This is a long story spanning almost 2 years at this point, and I may not be able to tell everything in one straight post, so I may update later. Also, so much has happened, so excuse me possibly messing up my timeline a bit. I, 25M, am the youngest of 3, 34M and 36M, and for all of 2024 I have been watching my parents lose their oldest son to an awful woman, and I will try to be as accurate as possible about what happened. Around 3 years ago, in the middle of the pandemic, my oldest brother, let's call him R, had divorced his wife of 8 years. His ex was an odd type of woman who rarely took responsibility for her own troubles and mistakes and filled my brother's head with what I can only describe as propaganda against my parents. This itself is a long story I won't go into, but the important points are that they divorced because she wanted to be polyamorous and already had a boyfriend and he did not. Once they divorced, R came to our parental home to apologize for the way he had been acting for over a decade, and we started to see him more frequently. Not long after this, a few weeks at most, he met his new girlfriend, and at the beginning all seemed fine. My brother felt like himself again and FaceTimes my mom on the regular, like he used to. When Easter, 2021, came along, we got to meet the new girlfriend, and she seemed a lot nicer and more social than my brother's ex, but something didn't sit right with me about her. My mother denied it, saying she was so much better than R's ex and that everyone has their own issues and quirks. We later found out she has a strained relationship with her own family, explaining why she may have felt off at our own family meetings. Hearing my mother's words, I tried to shake this feeling, but more instances of weird behavior started occurring. Once, at a huge extended family barbecue, the girlfriend, let's call her M, kept on teasing my other brother, let's call him S, about him still being single and that he should definitely download Tinder and whatnot. Little backstory, R and M met on Facebook dating, so maybe that's why she endorses online dating so much. While this was not the first time M was teasing S about this, I saw her comments not sit right with him, and before I could interfere, S spoke up and told he to knock it off in front of all of our family. My brother S is a pretty calm and reserved individual who is happy living the way he lives his life, so watching him tell him off was a bit of a shock to me. Another incident followed when my parents and S volunteered to help move M and her into their new place. R had been doing very well in his career and found a new place to work with at a new company with a new boss who also helped him into a new apartment. This also meant that R and M would be moving in together, so there was a lot of stress. The weekend before the great move, my father broke his shoulder, or some such, and couldn't drive the moving van that they had hired. This caused a lot of anger in M, and she has, till this day, not forgiven my father for this. On the moving day itself, it also caused a lot of friction between my mother and brother S and M. From what I heard, a few heated arguments broke out between M and S and my mother, after which we didn't see or hear from M for a few months. Again, S is a very reserved and calm man, and hearing about these fights, I just could not imagine any of it being his fault. After these incidents, things quieted down for a little while until December 2022, when R and M surprised us with the news they were pregnant. This overjoyed my parents, who would finally become grandparents, but I was a bit more skeptical. The pregnancy was a very hard one from what I have heard, and my mother told me she had this feeling that M was struggling with not just the pregnancy but also some family issues and may not be as excited to become a mother. My parents' response to this was to try and help them out any way they could to prepare for the baby and once it would arrive. During this time, in April of 2023, our grandmother, my father's mother, passed away. She had been struggling since late December and was admitted early January. When we got the news, S was in a different country, so me and my girlfriend decided to visit R and M. It was a very heavy evening until my girlfriend and I decided to lighten the mood with some exciting news. We had decided to move in together. M's response was one that ticked me off immensely, going on a long monologue on why my girlfriend shouldn't move in with me and should instead move to a different city and focus on her studies and partying. My girlfriend is a bit younger than me, 22F, and is not really the partying type. This left a bad taste in my mouth, but I said nothing about it. We left their home feeling very weirded out about the interaction. Then came my grandmother's funeral. Everyone was notified by a card and customarily mentioned all close family related to my grandmother. This included my aunt and uncle and their kids, my parents, and of course me and my brothers, as well as all great-grandkids, being my cousin's infant son and the yet unborn son of R and M. This infuriated M beyond belief, raving about my parents having no right to announce something like this. Her due date was 2 months later, so at this point she had been pregnant for about 7-ish months. My parents said they didn't mention what great-grandkids, just any all, and said they didn't check with he first because it had been the furthest thing from their mind. This, again, left a bad taste in all of our mouths.